in our societies, because we all see ourselves as the one family, then the sense of self-worth that comes from our existence altogether is not connected to wealth at all, not even in the slightest. We do not feel that we are of one level or another level on the basis of what material possessions we have, of how much, as close as it can be synonymous to how is third on earth, this concept of wealth. It is not integrated into our self-concept at all. And therefore, it plays no part in our self-worth paradigm. Our self-worth is derived more so from Hi, I'm Muzz iEvolv. Thank you very much for being here again this week. Please take a moment now to like, subscribe, comment and share on this video. You can see that it looks a bit of a different look. It's because I lost my phone and I'm using one of my son's old phones. So the quality's not quite as good. But what I got to say is the pinks are very pink. So that's a bonus. I've had a few people give me feedback on this book, my new book, which I launched last week. And the feedback is great. I'm getting raving reviews that they really enjoyed this book, and also that it has given them a newfound confidence and belief in their ability to channel. So if channeling is something that you have some thoughts about, then I recommend you have a look at this book. It's very cheap and really can make a big difference from the feedback I'm getting from the people that have read it. If you would like to do a private channeling with me, that's something which is also possible. And all you need to do is just go below. That's where you'll find a link to the book, and you'll also find a link to an inquiry form to start the process of seeing if there's a match between you and I in regards to getting a private channeling. And on to today's question. It is, how are money, aliens, and self-worth related? Greetings and thank you for the question. How are money, aliens, and self-worth connected? This question we have asked today is going to be a convoluted way. We are going to trace a path which will end in an understanding of your self-worth, which is pertinent for this particular phase of what is occurring in the Earth-human paradigm. So, let us begin in this way. A question that is often posed is, do alien races have money? Well, to have a growing civilization, there has to be some form of economy. And for there to be an economy, that means there is some exchange, an exchange of value. And therefore, yes, it is true that alien races, or speaking more so relevant to our own, we do have what you would call money. But it is thought of and used as a type of exchange which is different to how it is done here on Earth. So, let us explain this in greater detail. When a purchase is made on planet Earth, and you exchange money in return for something, the mindset or the perspective that is taken of that exchange is, have I really received the value equal to what I paid? Was I ripped off? Did I actually get what I paid for? Whereas the paradigm which is most common in our experience is the reverse of that. So we come from it with the perspective is, have I given enough? Did I provide enough? I feel I want to give more. Or rather than in Earth, it is, I feel I should have gotten more. And therefore, it is really almost a battle of generosity in our society, where we are abundant in our resources, in our concept of what is available to us in the universe, and therefore it is very easy and a very natural propensity to be very generous to those that we have exchanges with. And typically the exchange is not one of giving something like a service or a product in return for money, but rather it is an exchange of value. And that value can take many different forms. But there are times when that exchange is without a commonality. There is not something which both sides can get from each other. So in those occurrences, there is a currency which is used. And in the beginning of the economy which we have now, that has grown from this sort of past early paradigm, has become used less and less and less across time. So now that the currency which we have is barely used at all. It is only really used in the rare times when there is not some alternative way to do the exchange. So this is difficult for humans to understand because you don't have the awareness that you're all the one family, that you're all intimately connected to each other, that you're all actually the same being. These are the three fundamental understandings which are commonplace in the rest of the cosmos, but not present here on planet Earth. And that is that you are connected to the one, you are connected to each other, and that you are made of the light and nothing but the light. When you are living in a society where those three understandings are commonly part of your beingness, not something that you have intellectually, but it's not even thought about because it is just known from the moment of your first sentient awareness. So, in that scenario, everybody you encounter, no matter who they are, is your family, is somebody who is dear and near to you, even though it may be the first time you have ever encountered them. But even so, they are welcomed into your life and you into theirs with the utmost love and honour that you would show your closest family members. This is relevant at this point because think of your own parents. How much have you fantasized and even said to your parents that one day I'm going to give you a house, I'm going to make your lives easier, I'm going to buy you a car, I'm going to pay off your mortgage, and you'll never have to worry about those kind of things ever again. Or your own partner, or your own children. How willing are you to be so generous to them that you will sacrifice yourself to give them a better life, to take away all the stresses and worries which they have to contend with? Now, if you were to expand that across your entire species, you can see that is a very, very different paradigm. So now it is not a matter of, am I getting ripped off? Am I getting what I paid for? But more a dynamic of, I want to give. I want to make sure that this other person that I'm dealing with doesn't have to deal with the worries and the stresses and all of the things that come with not having enough. So I'm going to give my full heart in generosity to them. In that paradigm, currency is much less necessary. Because also in this paradigm, there is not a need to be rewarded immediately. If you provide a good in the earth human economy, then you want payment. You need to receive something to ensure that you have gotten what you deserved. And so really the longest that will be contended with in the earth experience is maybe 3 months, 3 billing cycles, which is what the large corporations usually operate as because their wheels turn very slowly. But when it goes beyond 3 months, then there starts being problems where the side of this arrangement which haven't received what was promised to them are now starting to get some hostility into the engagement with the other entity because they haven't been rewarded what has been agreed upon. Whereas in our societies, sometimes you may go half a lifetime before you receive back that what was given in the sense of exchange, because you have a trust and a love for them. And in fact, if they were never to reward you back what was promised, it would not be a big deal. It would not matter to you at all. And so when they do eventually one day decide to return to you something of equal value, it will be received as a gift, as a bonus, as a loving gesture for which you are so grateful and wish to shower them even with more because you have received. So, now this is very different, and it is very free and easy in the way that exchange occurs in our societies, where a ledger isn't really kept about who owes what to who, although we do have impeccable memories, so there is always recall of that information. But really the point is that it is of little importance, because it is like giving to our children, giving to our partner, giving to our mother and father. It is done freely and openly, and so ledger, no ledger, who really cares? And this is also made possible because, yes, we live in a very abundant reality where all discoveries which can revolutionize, drastically transform our societies are never withheld. They're always given freely so that they can be dispersed amongst the entirety of our population as quickly as possible, and so that we can begin utilizing the abundance and the benefit and the prosperity and the elevation and everything that comes from that as quickly as is feasible. Whereas in the earth human paradigm, those that have now sequestered the highest levels of wealth and technology and so on, as they make more bounding advancements in their capacities, then they are more and more inclined to keep it private. They increase their security when they make a major discovery, because they are so selfish that they do not wish anyone to have access what they see as being entirely and solely theirs, because it gives them advantage. They do not see the rest of your species as their family, but rather as underlings, as something they wish to eradicate only once they have exploited it to the maximum extent. And of course, we're talking about the Cabal of Darkness, this group of elites that have dedicated themselves, pledged themselves to darkness, and have, in their own self-perception, set themselves apart from the rest of humanity. In our societies, because we all see ourselves as the one family, then the sense of self-worth that comes from our existence altogether is not connected to wealth at all, not even in the slightest. We do not feel that we are of one level or another level on the basis of what material possessions we have, of how much, as close as it can be synonymous to how is third on earth, this concept of wealth. It is not integrated into our self-concept at all, and therefore it plays no part in our self-worth paradigm. Our self-worth is derived more so from who we are being, how much we are very authentically and honestly exuding the qualities of the One, that we are being beings of the light, that we act with love and kindness and courage and curiosity and passion and compassion and so on. These qualities and artifacts of our Creator, the One. And it is when we are living in that way to the absolute utmost of which we are capable, that our self-worth is at its highest. And because we have this understanding, and also we live in an environment where that is very easy and also invited and expected to occur, and we have reached a level of awakening where these are fully integrated concepts into our self-belief and understanding, then we, it could be said from the human perspective, live in absolute paradise, where there is nothing but absolute trust and love for each of us, of each other, and also of ourselves. Because our self-worth is at its maximum. And this does not mean it is at its maximum for all time, but it is at its maximum for what is capable for us in our current stage of development, both individually and as a society. When you reach into the higher levels, you will find that your growth as a species becomes explosive, and you are growing at a very, very, very rapid rate as you expand into your infinity. You now as human beings, although you are going through a period of very rapid transformation, it is still really nothing compared to what it is going to become. And in fact, you will look back at this time, even now, when things are changing and transforming at such a rate, and you will see it as being a stagnant moment in time, where not really much was happening at all. In the time that we have been observing humanity, you have transformed to quite some degree. But in the same time span, our own transformation has been much more remarkable, or shall we say, much more if you were to quantify transformation into units. So you could say that your transformation has been 10 units, whereas our transformation across the same time has been 100 units. And this is because that is what is possible as you reach higher and higher levels within the all, as you make your progression back to the full coalescence into the one. You now start accessing your infinity at an increasing and increasing and increasing rate. So at this current moment, what is possible for us in terms of self-worth is at its maximum. But it will be more tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. It is always on the increase. It does not trough. It does not have moments of high and then moments of low. It is always consistently, incrementally increasing, because our self-worth is intricately intertwined with our expression of the light. The more that we express the light, the higher is our self-worth. And we are increasing our capacity to express the light in every single passing moment. In contrast, in the Earth human experience, you can have moments of buoyed self-worth and then have following moments of lowered self-worth. There is no consistent incremental increase in your self-worth. And this is because your self-worth is not connected to your expression of the light, but is instead connected to things which matter not. It is connected very much so in the Earth human experience among a vast array of other things, which we will not go into detail in this session. But we are speaking of money. This is one of the topics we chose today to speak about how money is related to self-worth. And so in the Earth human experience, you are very connected in your concept of self-worth to your wealth, to how much money you have. And so when you are feeling financially great, your self-worth is elevated. But then when you are having financial crises, your self-worth is diminished. This is not necessarily something which is a mistake or just a product of the organic way in which your societies have been formed. But it is very much a deliberate part of the human psyche which has been inculcated into the Earth's human species for many generations. And that is because those who are forming your cultures, which again we refer to the cabal of darkness, They want this to be the paradigm, that self-worth is determined by your money value, how much wealth you have. Because they have developed a system where they can create wealth, they can create money literally from nothing. This is what is known as Babylonian money magic. They have usurped the treasuries of all nations that have central banking systems. And so now, instead of money being created by the treasury as a direct reflection of increased value within the economy, because the people of the economy are becoming more industrious, more innovative, more ambitious, and are literally creating more value through their ingenious and their hard work. Instead, now what has occurred in most nations in the world is that there is a cabal which own the central banking system, and they are the central, most powerful figures of the cabal of darkness. And they have put themselves in a position where they own a private bank, and this private banking institution have the right to lend money to the nation. So whenever the nation requires money, it must be borrowed from this private bank and paid back with interest. And the money that they borrow, it comes from nothing. The nation borrows $100 billion from the central bank. $100 billion or $10 trillion is borrowed from the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve is not federal. It has no reserves. It is literally a privately owned bank. And the system has been contorted and infiltrated such that now, for money to enter into the US economy, it has to be borrowed from the Federal Reserve. And those who are owning the Federal Reserve, the private bankers, they do not have that money to lend because of some other values they have, but rather they literally create numbers on a screen. It is money created from nothing. This is Babylonian money magic. And this is also, as an aside, a good example of why the cabal of darkness have become adept and see it as a necessary part of their dark practice to summon the demon, to access higher dark intellects than their own. Because the Babylonian money magic system, which is now endemic across the planet, is an idea, it is a teaching, it is an instruction and guidance they received from summoning the demon. So, when they have infinite money, because they can literally create money, then of course it makes most sense to them if they were to exist in a world where self-worth is based entirely on how much money you have, because they have infinite money. And therefore, they are the elite of the elite. They are the most elite. There can never be any more elite than them. And the rest of the human experience will never be able to attain those levels of wealth, of money, of self-worth, because they do not have the capacity to print infinite money. This is a fascinating discussion, but it is going to be more relevant in the coming period of the human experience. If you have your self-worth paradigm closely associated with your accumulated wealth, with how much money you have, how much belongings you own, what is your cash flow, and so on, then this is a trepidatious self-concept, because the cabal are on the verge of orchestrating an economic shift, a collapsing of the global financial structure, so that they can usher in their new system of a digital currency, a central bank digital currency. For them to have this as a power, because that's what it will be. It will be sold to you as a currency which saves you from the financial disaster which they themselves have actually created. But that is not how it will be sold to the population. Then really it is a transactional system, not a currency. So they will control all of your transactions. They will be able to determine who and where and what you do with all of your money. And even they can put expiry dates on it. So if you do not spend your money before a certain date, then it just expires. This is the level of control and authority they will have if this becomes instigated. So for this to be the solution to the problem which they have created, which is the Hegelian dialectic, there must be a collapse of the current system. And so if there's going to be a collapse of the current system to such a disastrous extent where the people are willing to subject themselves to this central bank digital currency transactional system, then it must be a devastating drop, an absolute destruction of the financial system which you currently are using. So it is possible and quite likely that your own wealth paradigm is going to reduce significantly. The amount of money you earn is probably going to reduce. The cash flow you have in your life is quite likely going to reduce. And when it does, it's important that you do not allow your self-worth to be dragged down at the same time. That you are able to maintain a high level of self-worth, even though your financial wealth is at a low, maybe the lowest low since you became married or since you had children or in the last 2 decades or whatever it may be. You must unlink those now and start placing your self-worth paradigm on your capacity to exude and extrovertly be a being of the light, to express and let into your experience that quality of self. And then in this new paradigm, it matters very little what your wealth status is, because it is no longer tied together. And when you do this, when you unshackle it in this way, it also makes it much more possible for you not to step into the trap. Because the trap is, you have been absolutely demolished financially. And now you're at an all-time low in your sense of self-worth. You just want to feel better about yourself. And you're willing to do just about anything to achieve that. And so then they then offer you the solution, which is the trap, and that is the central bank digital currency. If you're at an all-time high in self-worth, even though you have been demolished financially, then it becomes very easy to go, no, not this time. I'm not falling into the trap. I don't care that I have been demolished financially. I will find a way. I believe in my Creator. I believe in an abundant universe, and I do not need you or your system. So, for those who do step into the trap and do become part of that system, they will then be forever locked into this paradigm that their self-worth is linked to the amount of wealth that they have. The system will tell them, if you are not a good person, if you are not a person worthy of self-worth, then that will be reflected in how much money you have or how much currency you have. Because every time you do something which the system deems as not a good citizen, as in like a particular thing on social media, or make a particular post on social media, or make a particular comment on social media, or do something else which is captured by surveillance cameras, which is going to be everywhere with facial recognition and so on, then they will literally penalize you by taking money out of your account because you are not worthy of having more than what is left after they penalize you. So your now lower value of currency is linked or is a reflection of your value as a human being. And if you are rebellious enough that you say and do things which are totally contrary to what they determine are the rules of good citizenry, then they can literally deplatform you from that system. And so now you will have zero wealth because you are a zero person. You have no self-worth from their perspective. You have been non-humaned. So, be bigger and better and bolder and wiser to step into this trap, because this is the final trap. There is no second chance after this trap. It's important that you not only unshackle yourself from the link between self-worth and financial abundance, but also that you start doing some things now to prepare for what is looking like is on the horizon. That you start putting some of your value into asset classes which are not cash, which are not money in the bank. So whether it is real estate or precious metals or perhaps some cryptocurrency, do it now, prepare now, so that when this time comes, you can snub your nose at the system because you saw it coming and you're wise to what's up and you know the trap, and your self-worth will never be determined by them, but will always be determined by you, because you understand that you are a beautiful being, an expression of the light, an individuation of your Creator, and so it shall be for all time. Thank you, and we love you. Thank you for watching another channeling. I really appreciate it. You made it to the end. Awesome. So your reward is another one of my corny stories. Excuse me that I'm in a singlet. It's super hot here and I try not to run the aircon too much. But I have something which is kind of cool. I'm going to show you. I'll tell you the backstory, the context. I went on a really long road trip with my girlfriend at the time, who ended up becoming my wife and the mother of my son. And we were camping in a very remote area. So the nearest human being to us was like 200 kilometers or 160 miles away or something like that. It's quite remote. And we built a fire, and then just around the fire, we're just sitting there. She's reading a book, I'm sketching, and I was doing a sketch of the fire. And then when I finished, I was quite proud. I said, hey, look at this. And she went, oh, that's cool. Who are the faces? I said, faces? What do you mean faces? And she goes, look, there's faces there. And I went, oh, wow. There actually is faces there. And so I kind of etched over them a little bit to make them a bit more prominent, but the faces were there, and I didn't even realize that they were there. So have a look. This is the picture. And you can see the two faces that are there. And those faces were totally an unconscious happening. Totally an accident, or it was some type of guidance or channeling. And where we were camping is in the Nullarbor Plain, which is a very remote part of Australia where Aboriginal tribes used to live, but at the moment there's zero civilization, none. But there were Indigenous tribes living there. And one of the faces that I drew actually was an Indigenous face, and totally just happened by random. So I've always thought that those spirits were there with us at the time we were around that campfire, and I intuitively somehow was aware of them, and I drew them in my picture without even realizing that I was doing it. But there you are. So I think that's pretty cool, and I've always kept this image because it's just so fascinating. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.